Hey, this is John Fernay, the co-host of the Maryland Crabs, and I am here today with a Maryland Crabcake for your listening pleasure. What's a crab cake? It's not quite a full episode, it's just a little snippet. Stay tuned and check it out. And make sure you check us out on themarylandcrabs.com. You can follow us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast, or find us on Facebook at the Maryland Crabs Podcast. And don't forget, subscribe, rate us, iTunes. Go there now. Joining us today is Vern Yip, and if you have ever been on TLC or HGTV, you obviously know him. He is an Atlanta-based interior designer. You know him from TLC's Trading Spaces, HGTV's Design Star, Deserving Designs, and Urban Oasis. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to call. The reason that you're calling us is just not a random phone call. You're going to be here at the Annapolis Home and Garden Expo, which is coming into town at the end of February. It's February 23rd and 24th, and you're going to be putting on a couple seminars on the 23rd, and we just wanted to sort of talk and learn a little bit more about you and what we can expect when you come into town.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be coming. I kind of grew up in the area. I'm originally from McLean, Virginia, so we're all kind of part of that DC metro area, and I've been to Annapolis a lot, so I'm excited to be coming back. But I'm going to be coming to specifically talk about design tips that are universally applicable to everyone. And these are the kinds of design tips that can really help you transform your house into even more of a home. So it's whether you live in a tiny 400 square foot studio apartment that you're renting, or if you live in a 15,000 square foot home that you own. No matter who you are, these are kind of universal rules. So I'll give you an example. The number one question I get asked is, how high do I hang the pictures in my house? And what would you say, John?
I would go eye height.
Yes, that's what everybody says. But whose eye height? Because even if you live by yourself, and there are many of us who don't, many of us have a spouse or a partner or kids or whatever that we share the house with. But even if you live by yourself, you're bound to have visitors. You're bound to have friends and family come. So we use a standardized rule of 60 inches from finished floor to the center of the image or the mirror, unless it's above a headboard or a fireplace mantle. And we use 60 inches because 60 inches is kind of average human eye level. So for the vast majority of people, it's the right height to kind of experience what you're looking at.
So technically, I didn't have the wrong answer. I just may not have had to.
Yeah, well, I mean, if your eye level is exactly 60 inches from finished floor to the middle, then yes, I mean, I guess you could say you have the right answer.
I feel a new career coming on.
Yes, exactly. We're going to have to shuttle you from house to house around the country so that people can hang their pictures.
But that's pretty amazing. And actually, when you said you had kids and stuff like that, I'm like thinking, kids go around the first part of their lives looking at adults' knees, and they probably grow up in homes thinking like, wasn't there anything on the wall? There's nothing nothing down here for me.
Exactly.
But what else is universal? And I don't want to spoil what you're going to tell us. But
No. Well, that's the interesting thing is that there are so many of these tips that people can utilize for their homes because our world is largely standardized. So whether you're 4 feet tall or 7 feet tall, if most of us have a dining room table, for example, that's between 29 and 31 inches tall. The vast majority of dining room tables are exactly at 30 inches tall. So unless you're an NBA player and you're going to have a custom-made dining room table that's really more to your height, you're probably going to have a table that's 30 inches tall because most of us are buying from a store. And that kind of standardization means that, we can begin to give people rules that will then hopefully translate into less design paralysis, because I think that's where people really get hung up. They sort of feel like, I don't want to make a mistake. It's different from making a mistake, like when you buy a sweater that's too small, or you buy shoes that are too big, or whatever. It's easier to kind of correct those mistakes because those are smaller things. They're not as big of an investment. But when you're talking about doing something to your home, people get really scared because they don't want to make a costly mistake or one that's going to be difficult to change. So knowing that your dining room table is likely between 29 to 31 inches tall means that you then know that the light fixture over your dining room table should be hung at 66 inches from finished floor to the underside. And we say that because at 66 inches, it's low enough so that it's still illuminating the surface of the table, which is the purpose of the fixture, but it's high enough so that when people are sitting at the table, they can still see the people across from them. So yeah, again, those are the kinds of universal rules that are applicable to everybody. It doesn't matter if your ceilings are 6 feet tall or if your ceilings are 60 feet tall. You don't hang your light fixture all the way up closer to the ceiling because you have tall ceilings. And the other side is you don't hang it closer to the table because you have low ceilings. Your dining room table is still going to be at that 30-inch height, whether it's made out of cardboard or if it's made out of solid gold. So again, by helping people wrap their mind around these universal rules, hopefully they begin to feel like they can enjoy the process of then finding the things that go in their home that are the right size and that they really love aesthetically.
Interesting. Now, do you have to spend a ton of money to do a home that looks fabulous?
You don't have to spend a lot of money to get there. That's the really great part about where we are with design today. Everybody, no matter where you fall on the economic spectrum, deserves to have a home that's reflective of them functionally and reflective of them aesthetically. If you don't have both of those things dovetailing to reflect who you are, then you're not living your fullest life. Your home is where you spend the most important moments of your life with your family and friends. It's the place that should nurture you the minute that you walk through the front door. So I always say to people, it's worth it, and there is a path from point A to point B, no matter how much you have to spend. I think Trading Spaces is the perfect example. I mean, we redid rooms for $1,000 and in 2 days back when we launched. The budget has been upped slightly since the initial premiere of the series, but it's still designed to show that people can achieve this even if they're working with really tight budgets, because everybody has other things to take care of. Everyone's trying to get food on the table, trying to keep a roof over their head, trying to keep the lights on. So, even to have $1,000 these days as extra money to redo a room is still pretty significant.
Sure. Well, question, you talked about how it's so important to have your family and it's got to be a welcoming and an oasis for you and your family and stuff like that. Now, I want to get a little bit into your family. You came from Hong Kong originally. You were born in Hong Kong?
I was born in Hong Kong, but my parents moved to the Washington, D.C. area when I was 2 months old. So I really grew up in D.C. English was my first language, but I was raised in a very traditional Chinese household. So even though I'm American, I still have a really strong traditional Chinese core.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, I've got a good friend of my daughter's is adopted from China, from mainland China, and she holds a lot of the roots and everything else there. And you, like you said, you grew up in McLean. And you went to University of Virginia because I turned around and looked at Wikipedia and that's what it said. And you majored in chemistry and economics. And now you're an interior designer, TV star. And how did that all work out?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take the most direct route, obviously, to becoming an interior designer and a TV host. Being brought up in a very traditional Chinese household, your parents basically raise you and they say you have two options in life. You can become a doctor or you can become a doctor. Totally up to you. So I was a pre-med student at the University of Virginia because I grew up a very obedient Chinese son, and I always wanted to make my parents proud. And I realized how much they sacrificed to come to this country. My dad went from being a biochemist to being a busboy at the Marriott in Roslyn, Virginia. And my mother went from being a child psychiatrist to washing floors at a bank. But they made those sacrifices to bring us to this country because this is, the greatest country on planet Earth. I really firmly believe that. I mean, we are in slightly more controversial times right now, but no matter where you fall, on the political spectrum, no matter what your point of view is, we still live in a country where when you turn the handle on the faucet, water comes out. And when you're sick, there's an option and there's education. And, there's things here that, people don't get in other countries, and certainly things that people don't get as readily. So I was very appreciative that they made those huge sacrifices to allow me and my sister to have these opportunities in the U.S. And so I wanted to make them happy. And I ended up being a pre-med student at the University of Virginia. I spent my spring, summer, winter breaks working at the Transmitted and Transfused Viruses Laboratory at the National Institutes of Health.
Right.
And I really hated it. I mean, I every day I would walk into that lab and I would think, instead of focusing on what I was supposed to do, I'd be thinking, why are the walls this horrible shade of yellow? Why do we have to work under fluorescent lights? I was not focusing on what I needed to be focusing on. So 2 weeks before medical school was about to start, I finally worked up enough courage to say to my mom, I can't do this. I've known my whole life I'm supposed to be an architect. I've known my whole life I'm supposed to design. And she said, well, then go pursue it. And I ended up going to graduate school at Georgia Tech instead of going to medical school. And I got my master's in architecture and I got my MBA. And that eventually led to me graduating and getting a job at a big interior design and architecture firm, the biggest one in the Southeast. And the head of interior design noticed me one day and she said, I think there's something about you that makes me think you'd be an amazing interior designer. I'm going to give you a break. And she gave me the corporate headquarters of Disney Cruise to design, just as Disney was launching their cruise division.
And fantastic. The wonder and the magic.
Yeah, it changed the trajectory of my life.
That's fantastic. Now, you were an architect as well?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Georgia Tech. I got my master's in architecture, and that's how I started off in the professional world. I started off in architecture, but the firm that I was with was working in both architecture and interior design. And so there was a lot of overlap. And so it was pretty incredible that she gave me that opportunity because I wasn't even working in the interior design department at that time.
That's fantastic. Well, it's amazing how life throws little curveballs at you that end up you're able to connect with them and hit them out of the park, so to speak. And you also have two children. You've got a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, or a 10 and 11-year-old?
We have a son who just turned 9. He turned 9 in January, and we have a daughter who's about to turn 8 in March. So I essentially have an 8 and a 9-year-old.
Okay, so you've got a few years left before it really gets a little bit challenging then, as they get into the teen years there.
Oh my gosh, I know. Everybody has said to me, wait until they're teenagers. But I have to say, I'm knocking on wood as I speak to you. Everybody sort of said to us along the way, oh, wait until they're 2. It's going to be awful. Wait until they're this or wait until they're that. And they have been great every step of the way. We have been so fortunate. So I'm hoping that our lucky streak will continue.
I've got 3 as well, and they've all been really, really very good. I will say, though, in hindsight now that my son is 26 and my youngest is 21, that you can give me boys all day long to raise, and as opposed to girls. Girls are definitely a little bit more of a challenge.
Well, I mean, I've heard that. I've heard that as well, that girls can be more challenging, but I've also heard the opposite, that boys can be more challenging. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's an individual, and our kids are really cool. I can say, without question, of course, like most parents can, that, we absolutely love our kids. But what I can also say, and this is the part that I always find so special, is that I really like our kids. We like to do the same things. They're foodies like we are. They love to travel like we do. They're always up for an adventure, and they're
fantastic.
Yeah, no, we feel extremely fortunate. We really, really do. I mean, it's the greatest ride of my life, and they have made me not only a better man and a better, person, but they've made me a better designer too. I mean, quite frankly. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Neat. Well, you do have 2 books, or actually 1.5 book, I guess. You've got one that's coming out in August.
Yes.
Which is called Vacation at Home: Design Ideas for Creating Your Everyday Getaway. And you've got one that's been out for a couple of years now called Design-Wise.
Yeah.
Your Smart Guide to a Beautiful Home. And they, I'm assuming, I know they're available on Amazon and in some bookstores, but they probably have the tips that you're going to be giving at the Home Expo.
Design-Wise is really that book that has those universal tips that are applicable to everybody, you know, the tips that hopefully will get you out of design paralysis. Vacation at Home is a book that also delivers great tips, but not tips that are as numbers oriented, but universal tips to kind of really help you achieve a home that will nurture you and take care of you the moment that you walk through the front door. Because I think that that's really important. I mean, so many of us come home and we come home to shoes in the hallway, coats on the banister, you know, mail stacked on the, you know, foyer table or on the kitchen countertop. And the thing is, you know, we dream of those 5 days or 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever that we get, that we go on vacation, where we can go somewhere, where we can relax, where we can be rejuvenated and re-energized, where we aren't as stressed. But I always say to people, instead of living for those weekends away or for those 5 days or 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever, you know, create that environment in your own home. If you walk through your front door and you close your eyes and you imagine the most relaxing, wonderful place that you could be, and you open your eyes and your home doesn't match that vision, then something is wrong. And I would highly encourage you to begin the process of turning your home into what I call an everyday vacation home. Instead of pining for the time to get away, you should be sitting at your desk pining to go home. And the minute you go home, you should immediately start that process of being restored.
That's a great concept. Well, you are going to be here at the end of February. February 23rd is when you're going to be doing your seminars. The home show goes the 23rd and the 24th. Tickets are inexpensive. You can get them at AnnapolisHomeshow.com, or you can get them at the door. They do have discounts for seniors and military, so you want to check that out for sure. And you have been here, you're somewhat of a local guy in McLean, Virginia. You got any favorites here in Annapolis? Any favorite haunts or bars or restaurants that you know, or is that not really a fair question?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I do get to pop into Annapolis periodically, but I'm always coming for work. It's always driven by work. And because I have little kids and they have school, they're oftentimes not with me. And even on the weekends, as you know, because you have kids
right.
too, the weekends are almost busier than the weekdays. I mean, they have activities and things. So what I try and do now that I'm a dad, is I try and get in as late as possible and leave as early as possible, not because I'm not excited about where I'm at. If I can put them to bed before I get on the plane, then I'm going to do that. If I can get home in time to take them to a soccer game or take them to their violin lessons or to a play date, then I'm going to do that. It's an experience that I think every parent on planet Earth probably goes through.
Anyhow, Vern Yip, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I look forward to seeing you on February 23rd at the Byzantium Center, which is right there on Riva Road, at the Annapolis Home and Garden Expo, which comes to Annapolis twice a year. Especially looking forward to your tips and tips and tricks on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so nice to talk to you.
This has been the Maryland Crabs podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.